and Simeon Sunday.
If you know something.
Good morning to you and welcome to Front Page Review on Voice of the People 96.1 FM. Gesera is my name. Good morning once again. It's the 13th of February 2024. You're welcome to the show. The Front Page Review is that show where we go across board checking out a lot of news bulletin to check out what the front page is saying and look at how they affect you as a Nigerian and us as Nigerians. This morning we saw, or rather yesterday, we saw fans, Ivorians, tripping out on the streets just to celebrate their victory. They had a victory match, so they tripped on the streets and they were celebrating in orange, pretty much. Anyway, congratulations to them and, their team as well. Still, in our intro this morning, we have the federal government and the US beginning talks as officials test the helicopter's wreckage. This is on Herbert Wigwe's death. Federal government, US begin talks as officials test copter's wreckage. The federal government on Monday had confirmed that it had begun talks with the government of the United States of America on the ongoing investigation of a chopper crash that claimed the lives of the group CEO of Access Holding, Herbert Wigwe, and some prominent Nigerians in California on Friday. This came as American investigators said the wreckage of the crashed chopper would be transferred to a new location in the US for comprehensive tests on Tuesday, which is today. Now, Wigwe, his wife Doreen, his son Chizi, and a former group chairman of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Abimbola Ogunbajo, died after the Airbus helicopter carrying them crashed at a border town between California and Nevada, killing all the 6 occupants, including 2 crew members. Now, this sad development has led to a widespread mourning in Nigeria and diaspora. You've got presidents from all over the world, even including the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, state governors in Nigeria. You've got business tycoons and some prominent Nigerians. They've also expressed commiserated with the families of the deceased Nigerians. Now, the federal government has said that the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau had entered into discussions with the National Transportation Safety Board of the United States to offer necessary support on the ongoing investigation of the circumstances that led to the crash of the chopper. The chopper, operated by Orbic Air as a Part 135 charter flight, crashed around 10 p.m. on Friday. Now, Nigeria's NSIB is the federal government agency that investigates air crashes, among others, in the country. The NTSB has a similar mandate in the United States. Now, looking at this investigation, the DG of NSIB, Captain Alex Bade, who confirmed the latest move by the federal government in a statement, has said that Nigeria's engagement with the US on the issue aligns with Chapter 5, Subsection 27 of the International Civil Aviation Organization's Annex 13, which bothers on aircraft accident and incident investigation. Now, according to the NSIB statement, that particular Chapter 5, Subsection 27 stipulates that a state having a special interest in an accident due to fatalities or serious injuries to its citizens is entitled to appoint an expert to visit the scene of the accident, have access to relevant information approved for public release by the state conducting the investigation, as well as information on the progress of the investigation, and then receive a copy of the final report. Already we've got Bade and his correspondents between the NSIB and the US NTSB. They've already revealed that the NTSB investigation into the crash is being led by Aaron Soa as the investigator in charge, supported by Mark Ward as the deputy investigator in charge as well. I mean, this particular crash has brought a colossal loss to Nigeria. Yesterday I said that our hearts go out to Wigwe and the Ogunbanjo families and loved ones affected by this tragedy. We're extending our deepest sympathies to them during this difficult time. If you look at what exactly is going on, you begin to wonder what exactly happened to cause the crash. Was it just the weather situation, or is there something more? Was there an engine malfunction? Was there a problem somewhere? However, we're waiting for the investigations to get underway and then let us know what exactly is happening in that particular wreckage. Just know that you can join the conversation. We're live on YouTube. It is at Voice of the People Abuja. Voice of the People Abuja. Pardon me, I didn't mention Simeon is having some transportation issue this morning. I don't know. Anyway, he'll be here in just a moment and join the conversation as well. Don't forget, at 7:30 we'll be joined by El-Rufai Oseni to help us do a little bit of justice to the headlines, as well as our in-house analyst Larry Oguego, who'll be joining us at 8 a.m. standing by for the conversation. Trust me, it's going to be an interesting one this morning. Now, if you've been following the news, you'd know that NAFDAC had placed a ban on sachet alcohol. Now, NAFDAC has insisted on sachet alcohol ban, but hoodlums have gone ahead to attack officials of NAFDAC. Now, the National Agency the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control on Monday has said there was no going back on the ban of the importation, manufacture, distribution and sale and the use of alcoholic beverages in sachets, PET and glass bottles of 200 ml and below. The DG of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, insisted that the ban was for the benefit of Nigerians and to save lives. Her announcement on January 31st that NAFDAC would begin the enforcement of the ban on alcoholic beverages in sachets had generated repeated protests by distillers and labor unions, who said the move would cost 500,000 workers their jobs. Asked on Monday whether NAFDAC would review the ban in the view of the growing protests, the head of public relations, NAFDAC, Christiana Obiazikwo, told newsmen that the ban still remained. Now, basically, the alcoholic content in sachets or PET bottles less than 200 ml is 30%. Beer has 4 to 8% alcohol, and the Association of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employers and Distillers and Blenders Association of Nigeria, they've signed an agreement with the Ministry of Health and NAFDAC. This was at December 2018, that they will phase out production of alcohol in sachet and PET bottles less than 200 ml by January 31st, 2024. Now, the agreement document is available online. You can check it out. It's a 5-year phase out notice should be very, very sufficient. Now, they say it's going to lead to loss of jobs, but it can lead to loss of lives as well. So which is more important? This is according to NAFDAC. Which is more important? They're not going back on the ban, and they're doing this to save the lives of Nigerians and commuters. Just what exactly is the challenge with alcoholic contents in the sachet or PET bottles? We'll be reviewing that with El-Rufai Oseni when he joins us on the phone. You see where school children buy it and put it in their bags, so they're doing it to protect children as well, because they can't take responsibility for themselves, so the leaders and adults need to take responsibility for them. And you're seeing that in reaction, the executive secretary of the Distillers and Blenders Association of Nigeria, John Ichue, insisted that the MOU signed with NAFDAC in 2018 could not be taken as a policy document. The document I'm referring to is the one I mentioned earlier, where the Association of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employers and Distillers and Blenders Association of Nigeria signed an agreement with the Ministry of Health and NAFDAC in December 2018 that they would phase out production of alcohol in sachet and PET bottles. This is 2024. How many years later, and we're still concluding, we're still in the middle of the phasing out of the alcohol in sachet and PET bottles. Meanwhile, we're having angry drug hawkers and touts on Monday attacking members of NAFDAC's Investigation and Enforcement Directorate and mobile policemen attached to them in the FCT. The enforcement team of the agency was on a raid for fake and unregistered counterfeit drugs at the Area 1 motor park in the FCT when they were attacked. While this enforcement exercise is ongoing, the hawkers and touts at the park started throwing stones and other dangerous objects at the team and journalists who were on hand to monitor the exercise. It took the intervention of the mobile police, who threw tear gas and shot sporadically into the air to disperse the attackers, while the enforcement team and journalists escaped from the park. However, you're seeing that 2 vehicles off NAFDAC were vandalized. Welcome, Simeon Sunday. Welcome.
Good morning to you, Gessie. I've actually heard the report on the ban of, alcohol in sachet and PET bottles. And of course, I've seen, NAFDAC saying they're not going back on that particular one. And of course, we've seen even manufacturers as well. We've seen some labor unions, we've seen some groups actually protest, this ban by NAFDAC. But the key question we should be asking ourselves at this time is, if this is done, who are the beneficiaries? Who will benefit, from the overall policy of NAFDAC? We've seen some of the, statement made by NAFDAC that even underage children have access to it because, one, it is cheaper. It is something you can actually, hide inside your bag and take to school. But at the end of the day, we as Nigerians, we don't have that alcohol sale policies in the country, and that is why NAFDAC is doing this.
Really, we do have it. So you always hear the issue. That particular, what do I call it? They say
not for persons under 18.
Exactly.
See, you need to understand that even on the packet of cigarettes, it is written smokers are liable to die young. Let's be factual with this. Let's not try to paint what is.
The enforcement of it.
See, the point is even if there
is
a policy, the problem is who are those enforcing it. When you go to other crimes, there are certain places that people under 18 cannot even go to
enter.
And before you even go there, for you to even have access to it, you have to show your not any ID card. You have to show your ID card that states your age, your place of birth, which means whatever it is, it means you need to have a national ID card on you for you to even access a bar or any place of alcohol. Now, the sales of alcohol in this country is not that regulated. We see people on the street. In the US, you don't just walk on the street and see Yagbo selling alcoholic beverage on the road. Because most of the people selling this sachet alcohol are people you see on the parks. Who are those regulated people in the parks using this alcohol? So you need to deal with the root cause, not dealing. It's just like, there's fire and you are blowing off the smoke on top of the fire, and you are not there to remove the firewood that's causing the fire in itself. That's the approach NAFDAC is using, because at the end of the day, truth be told, hundreds of people are going to lose their jobs. Because here, we know that in Nigeria, we are operating a sachet economy, because, even certain people cannot afford it. At the end of the day, even if the distillers decide that they want to put this alcoholic beverage in big bottles, who are those that can afford it? People cannot afford it, and hence we see people, doing this, putting them in sachet, making it affordable for the common man who needs it. I think we need to go back to our policy. We need to go to alcoholic beverage regulation, not you totally placing a ban on some of these alcoholic beverages, and then you think it's good for the economy. It's not good for the economy, because manufacturers are crying that this is the only way they sell their product. By the time they start packaging it in proper bottles or bigger bottles, the question is who will buy it and who can afford it. So these things actually have implications on the economy. If they are trying to stop underage drinking,
access to
alcohol, they know what they are supposed to do. Put in the policies, and also ensure that those who sell these alcoholic beverages ask for ID cards, just as we see in other crimes, before it's been sold.
All right. So the question now is the ban on sachet alcohol by NAFDAC, is it actually necessary? I mean, NAFDAC has come out to reel out the negative impact of early drinking on the underage population. They talked about increased crime rates. They've talked about poor performance in school, increased mortality rate, mental and physical health, unwillingness to participate in society development and all that. However, you have to look at when you're making policies like this, you have to look at the pros and the cons of a certain policy. Is there a way to prevent underage individuals from taking alcohol, especially in that sachet? Even if you look at this, Simeon, let's even forget the sachet, the sachet alcohol. Once you walk into a supermarket, anyone can pick up any bottle and buy
without
anyone. Let's
checked.
even forget the sachet. Anyone. So how come the sachet is the problem?
That's what I'm trying to say is most times when you want to address issues, deal with the root cause. Don't just deal with the the symptoms you're seeing, because when you're treating the symptoms, the cause of the problem is still there and it will always rise up. And they're saying they're trying to do this to stop underage people from accessing alcohol. Whether we like it or not, they will still find a way around it. This
Except
is Nigeria.
we do our own
our own let's start putting policies in place. Let's start ensuring that these policies are being implemented at the end of the day. For those selling alcoholic beverage, in fact, what can be done is regulate those who can sell alcoholic beverage. The random Iyalagbo close to Area 1 garage shouldn't be able to sell alcohol. If you want to sell alcohol, just like we've seen pharmaceutical products being sold at pharmacies and some licensed chemists, you don't see, even these days I see boys in Area 1 carrying drugs. You don't even know if it's counterfeited drugs that they carry and they're selling. Regulate the people who sell alcohol, and when you regulate the people that can't sell alcohol,
does that not still beg the question of employment at this point? Because I mean, Labour is talking about employment and all that, the number of individuals who lose their jobs. So regulating the people selling alcohol, does that not also affect the employment rates that we're talking about?
I understand, whether you like it or not, for every policy there's also this effect, whether positive or negative. And for us to actually tackle this, when we talk about unemployment, the health of the population is even more important, because you don't want to have a dying population in the country. So when you regulate this, you have certain people who are those selling a license to sell alcohol, whether shops, whether stores, whether individuals. Then those who want to, and then you regulate. Once you regulate them, they not require certain things. When they look at you, they feel you're underage, they ask you where's your ID, and you show your ID, you're above 18, they sell to you. And if you're not, just the way we see on other clients, people don't sell on the streets now. Let's be factual.
All right, so we'll try to reach El-Rufai Oseni this morning and communicate with him in just a moment. However, we're seeing conversations about a 1 million naira proposed minimum wage by Labour. We talked about this yesterday, but there's a developing story. Minimum wage private sector, states are faulting Labour's push for 1 million. Now, organized private sector Ekiti, Sokoto and other states have faulted the demand by NLC for 1 million naira minimum wage, stating that it is not realistic. The NLC president, Joe Ajaero, in an interview on television on Monday, said organized labor might ask for 1 million naira during the minimum wage negotiations with the federal government if the value of the naira continued to plummet. Reacting to the proposal, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, said the federal government will make a reasonable decision in line with national interest and after due consideration of available resources and other factors. 1 million naira minimum wage. Good morning, Mr. El-Rufai, and welcome to the show.
Oh, bless you.
Good morning.
All right, you're welcome. Mr. El-Rufai, we're having a lot of conversations this morning. First of all, we'll look at the minimum wage that Labour is pegging at 1 million. What exactly is your take on this?
That's not possible. I think what government should do is try to improve living conditions and reduce inflation. But this idea of 1 million minimum wage, me, I don't like to deceive myself. Yes, it's not possible. But it's got money for to pay 1 million minimum wage. And don't forget, it's a minimum wage. So are you telling me that a government official that is in level 16, that's 1 million minimum wage, or level 14, we could be getting 14 million. That's always the first inflation. I mean, people are just talking, it's not realistic talk. And that's the problem. People does not do empirical data findings in consonance with labor should just not mute any amount. You go and do empirical data finding consonance with inflation. Because if you are saying government is paying minimum wage 1 million, it's going to cause inflation. It's going to cause inflation too much. Why are you going to get too much naira change to people? No, it's not possible. Let's just forget about that. That's part of my problem I have with labor. They don't do their research. They just come out and mute out ideas in the public space.
All right, sorry, Mr. Rufai. This issue of improving the living conditions of Nigerians. What can the government do? Because we remember, years before, we used to have the federal government, doing housing, transportation, and different things to just help government workers to ensure that the cost of living generally is cheaper for them.
What's pushing the cost of living up is food. Government should remove every tariff possible on imported food for a short period of time to create for availability. Remove every tariff on ways we import rice and all of that. Remove every tariff. Once you remove every tariff now, you can flood the market with food. Once the market is flooded with food, then prices can now start to trickle down. That can also have a knock-on effect on inflation. At least for the next 6 months to 1 year, remove every tariff possible. Such an emergency situation. But while also removing tariffs, see how you can bolster local production of that same food item and try to start solving the security problems and all of that. If you are going to ensure that you itemize farm settlement where you can give proper security so that bandits don't come and do that. But it's really food. It's food that's pushing everything up. Go and look at food inflation. It's food inflation that is dragging the core inflation.
Mr. Rufai, it's interesting that you mentioned food at this point. We had the president talking about mechanized farming yesterday, and we're talking about the federal government saying food security requires agriculture, water resources ministries collaboration to ensure that there's food security. How possible is mechanized farming to even start with?
Very possible now. That is the easiest of the fact the world has gone to mechanized farming. But here we just a lot without implementing. Mechanized farming, those mechanized materials can even be fabricated in Nigeria. Can be used to open up a new industry of mechanization in this country. So the problem is our leaders just talk. They don't implement. So that's just the problem. That's the problem. You just talk, you don't implement. You can use to open up a lot of sectors. Cutting, cassava processing, and everything. Get the skills. There's no technology that is. Open it up. Even the diaton, all that don't really take care. People can be used to the material. Let's produce this thing locally and mechanize our agriculture. Use AI to use to ascertain very good plant seasons and weather patterns. Average farmer is mechanized. See, the only thing farmers normally will call people for is harvesting. And harvesting doesn't very getting mechanized.
Okay. Okay. Hello, are you there?
Yes, so
okay, quickly, let me still touch on Joe Ajaero for a bit before we move on to another headline. A lot of Nigerians are actually questions if Joe Ajaero is led NLC is even vibrant enough to influence certain policies of government. With the recent statement he has made, 1 million naira for minimum wage, is this not him putting a question on his capacity being able to lead the labor?
Oh yes, he's a very good job, but totally too. That's why he doesn't like when I interview because I will press his neck. And that's what I do. You have to call your empirical facts. You have to call your empirical facts. What was the calculation that resulted in that 1 million? I just haphazardly. Do you consider the attendant inflation circumstances that will create? That's why they lose their zest. You see, I keep talking about research and empirical data. Labor, since you have to done a research and empirical data. When most of these ideas are researched, empirically analyzed, you want to bring very good for everything. But we don't have that. There's no robustness in things. And when you don't have robustness in things, you have symbolic things. You have stinking things. So it was not well thought out. You know the inflation that will happen. 1 million for minimum, that means level 8 or level 9, sir. We are going to 10 million naira. Are you okay? So you have pressure.
All right.
For those who don't understand what he said, is our head correct me? With this kind of statement being made by Joe Ajaero. Anyway, let's go.
Very reckless one now. You're not even thinking of the agenda in inflation. I'm like, and you see, that's why I like labor struggle, but most of the time when you test their ideas on the grounds of empirical research, it falls flat. They're saying argue intelligently. I want to amazing in this country, but we don't argue intelligently. We argue very emotionally. And when people use facts to floor us, we start to shout and scream. Oh. No.
All right, Mr. Rufai, some people have said another thing that was ill thought out is NAFDAC's ban on sachet alcohol. Looking at that, what exactly is your take on the ban initially before we even go to the nitty-gritty of it?
I want to didn't have facts. So the manufacturers, they have empirical facts to show that underage drinking in this problem country is just 3.9%. So, like I said, what they could have put was guardrails. All right, in promotion of fertilizers in motor parks and things like that, possibly advertise the harmful effects, or they could have like a system where they collaborate with clubs and the fact that they check in for each other. But because they want to shut down the beverage industry, the reason why these people are producing a smaller sachet, it's because of the economic malaise.
Very true. Very true.
That's why Nigeria is not in sachet to sell something. So you thought it was because they want to make a high very cheap for people. No! It was because there was no economy again. Nigeria is going to be very small. About 4-5 years ago, we used to see Indomie on demand. Today on demand is close to 1,000 naira. You hardly even see it in shops again. I remember the first time I heard of Indomie then was 1994-95. It was 17 naira. 15 naira and 2 naira coin. That was one pack. But today, look at this. I remember that time Indomie was moving because you had a distinction. There was Aroso, Nigerian rice that used to have sown. That one was, so a cup of rice then was about 12 naira. Aroso was cheap. Aroso was about 9 naira. If you wanted to do it, you would factor in the price of buying kerosene. Kerosene, half bottle was 3 naira. One full bottle was 6 naira. Half bottle there was Fanta bottle. Full bottle was beer bottle. So you used to cook the Aroso. So some people say Aroso will take time. So let me just buy Indomie, factor and everything. And no pepper and everything already inside. I knew that was how the common man used to. It was in the 90s. Oh, look at things today. Everyone will not 1,000 naira. Even an angry man will not want to shop it. So these are the dynamics of the economy that we keep calling the government to fix. Food. but you need to do it with empirical data and research. So those NAFDAC that said no, that was not the way. Because you forget that close to 5% of the workforce in the country are from the beverage sector. So you want to render the job of close to 5% of an economy that's already depressed redundant. One policy.
All right. Mr. Rufai, Niger has banned commercial and international flights to and from Nigeria. Now, this issue with ECOWAS and all that, what is the way forward for Nigeria and Niger Republic? Because, I mean, these are brothers just at the border, right? We share a border with them at this point in time. So what exactly can we do, looking at the fact that we're the chair of ECOWAS, that's one, and then there are our neighbors as well?
In the interim, commercial flights will increase. That's what it means. Because when you fly from Lagos or you fly from Abuja, you have to pass through Niger, Agadez, you don't start hitting Eastern Africa. You have to go and be around them. Dialogue with them. Because we are keeping them. Now, maybe we have shut our borders against them before. We too should look at how to be able to open that up. Because we have to shut their own airspace. So we have to go and dialogue. We have to go and talk.
Okay. Anyway,
part of that President Tinubu made that time, and we're telling him they thought our mouth was smelly. Whose mouth is smelly? Thanks to this, people not did their review that military were already taking position to go and bomb Niger. What do we do? What do we carry? What do we do? What's happening? We need to go and think about and bomb Niger. When your own local conditions were bad. Then we protested before the Senate gave a vote of no confidence over that action. President Tinubu will have just plunged us into a war that's not our own. That's what has heralded President Tinubu's administration. Total decision-making process. For them to take us to war in Niger, they were the one that floated the Naira without having things to defend. They were the one that removed something and float Naira, devalue Naira at the same time. Just been a medley of total decision-making process. They have done things before you have think afterwards.
All right.
Okay, quickly before we let you go, because the network is not too friendly this morning, let's get to talk about the Nigerian Union of Teachers, who have actually called on the president and asked him to declare a state of emergency on security. And this is coming on the background that one of the drivers of that was kidnapped during the Ekiti saga, which we talked about, was actually killed. And of course, they said he was killed because of how he was speaking with the bandits. Now, the question is, even if the president, declares a state of emergency or security, will it really address the issue?
He's not going to address the issue. I'm tired of all these states of emergencies. I'm not going to address any issue. Let people do the needful. That's my own. Bless you. Have a great one.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rufai, for having us this morning.
Okay, this is still the front page review right here on Voice of the People 96.1 FM. I remember we are live on YouTube. Feel free to join the conversation. Drop your comment via the live chat on YouTube at Voice of the People Abuja. Just key in Voice of the People Abuja. You see the live feed and you can actually join the conversation. I remember you can also call in via the studio number or send us a message or voice note on WhatsApp. The number is 0700 010 961 961 0700 010 961 961. Haven't spoken to with Rufai Oseni this morning. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, of course, I'll be reaching out to Larry Ogwego, who is currently standing by.
VOP 96.1 FM.
Today's sun is so hot though.
So what are you waiting for? Get the authentic taste of creamy cold berry ice cream. To order online from Gariki, call 090-8831-5907. Guarimpa 090-8831-5909. And Lugbe 090-8845-3416.
Enjoy authentic cold berry ice cream.
Glory to God
to the Lamb, beauty to the throne of eternity.
Brotherhood of the Cross and Star presents the Everlasting Gospel Movement on video every Saturday, 6 to 7 p.m. on 96.1 FM. Tune in and be blessed. Thank you, Father.
Adoration, adoration.
Do you like what we do? Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on YouTube, Insta, and Twitter. At Voice of the People 96.1 FM. Share us on your socials. Tell everyone. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us at Voice of the People 96.1 FM.
After a long week at school, don't you want to wind down and have fun?
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain! Tune in to the Kids Cafe and enjoy story time, spelling bees, and poems, and win amazing prizes.
Catboy! Owlette! Gecko! Let's go!
Kids Cafe, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on VOP 96.1 FM. It's the Kids Cafe. Come, let's have fun.
I can't think of a rhyme! DJ Masks! DJ Masks! DJ Masks!
Voice of the People.
Good morning, you're welcome back. This is still Front Page Review on Voice of the People 96.1 FM, 7:56 on the clock right now. And of course, we just had a conversation with El-Rufai Oseni right here in the studios. And of course, it's time for us to reach out to Larry Ogwegu, who is currently standing by and, waiting to lend his voice to some of the headlines we'll be talking about this morning. So let's reach out to Stanley Ogwegu, Larry Ogwegu, I beg your pardon. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning to you, Mr. Larry.
Good morning, and how are we doing today?
We are doing great. Great to have you on the show this morning.
My pleasure too.
Okay. Before we move on to the headline, we definitely want to thank you for your dedication, week in, week out on this platform.
Yeah, I think it's important that we make commitments to ourselves as Nigerians to do what we can to make Nigeria work. And that's precisely what I'm doing. And thanks to your station, a wonderful station, for the opportunity to give unbiased analysis. There are some platforms that don't have the courage to allow the truth to flourish. But this is one of those platforms that actually has the courage to tell truth to power. So it's something I should also salute your team for.
Okay, thank you so much for the commendation. And now let's move on to the headline. Earlier we had this conversation, but let me hear your take on it. Just recently, we know that the Labour leader 1 million naira. What do you think about that?
I think we need to become more creative about the issues of minimum wage. If we peg minimum wage at 1 million naira on the 1 million naira on the basis that this is the cost of foreign exchange, and that's basically the cost of present day cost of living. What will happen is that the inflation occasioned by the 1 million naira legislation will basically also drive up prices, and the 1 million naira will be worth nothing. As we speak today, our minimum wage cannot buy a bag of rice. As a matter of fact, it can barely buy 25 kg bag of rice.
And it's not really about the amount you mentioned, it's about the purchasing power of the amount. My dad was a senior civil servant. His salary wasn't as a big boy then, it wasn't up to 30,000, but it was a lot of money. So I think the Labour should begin to think about more practical things. I've always advocated that we should look beyond money when negotiating the welfare of workers, because if they approve 1 million and then maybe 6 months down the road, one bag of rice is 1.5 million, the 1 million will be useless. They go back to the table. So what I think is that we should all look at how to make the Nigerian project and the economy work. And one of the things we should do when we discuss the welfare of workers is to ask a simple question. We don't ever ask that question. What is it that consumes the money of the average worker? One is housing. Why is it that we stopped mass housing in Nigeria? The last time I heard about low-cost housing was actually during the Shagari regime. I have not heard about low-cost housing in recent times. 99% of the housing projects executed by the present-day politicians are actually housing for the rich by the rich, and everything is about the rich. They do exclusive estates for themselves. So we need to do mass housing for the civil servants. And then we need to ask another question. Why are they spending money? The same question, but on what else? Education. When I was in school, my dad wasn't paying school fees. There were quite a few of us in school. At some point, I had 3 siblings in the university. The man wasn't worried. They were in quality public federal government-owned universities. Then there were no private universities. And the man had a lot of peace. You just basically train your kids, well, send them to school and have some peace. So we need to ask, what takes the money, again, beyond housing and education? Healthcare. So why can't we have effective healthcare in public hospitals? Labour is being myopic in just asking for money. If they are able to get one other thing also, transport. There is no reason we can't, for instance, be creative about transportation. That is, you can even have your regular transport. It's either you have a system that moves workers, or the Labour Union, as far as I know, can afford to establish their own effective transport company that will move everybody, but move members of the union at a subsidized rate. I think we need to become creative. If we can fix the cost of feeding, the cost of transport, the cost of housing, and the cost of education to be reasonable, then even if you don't pay the worker 1 million, the person will now use the money for what else, really? I mean, when you do feeding and you do education and you do housing and you do healthcare, what is remaining? So I think Labour should become more creative than talking about money and more money. Incidentally, what I'm advocating is already happening, but it's happening for the people who don't need it. As we speak, a typical Nigerian governor does not spend money on anything. His healthcare is free, the state. So education free, housing free, petrol free, food free, and then surprisingly they're enjoying this whole benefit, and they don't realize that what is good for the goose is also good for the gander. So I think we need to come off this 1 million thing, because remember Udoji Awards, if you give every worker 1 million as minimum wage, the inflation will be so bad that you won't have any benefit from the 1 million. We need to ask ourselves, beyond cash, what else? How do we make Nigeria work so that the average civil servant can go to hospital? We have national health insurance scheme. Is it working well? These are things we should fix. If we fix them, then we don't have to pay for everything.
When we're talking about inflation and all that, we always see security as a major issue. In a developing story, we're seeing 7 inmates freed, an inspector killed in another prison in the southeast, in another prison break in the southeast. Now we've got armed persons attacking the Owerri Correctional Center and freed a total, this was previously though, freed a total of 1,844 prisoners. This was in April 2021. Now, at least 7 inmates were freed, while a police inspector was killed in another prison break in Imo State. And the police spokesperson in Imo State, Henry Okoye, has disclosed this in a statement, and he said it happened on Monday. He's now describing how it happened and said that the 7 inmates were freed by gunmen who attacked in the early hours of Monday morning, and said apart from freeing the inmates, the attackers also killed a police inspector and abducted a police operative during the attack. Now, Mr. Larry, this particular situation is one too many prison breaks that we've had in the space of 5 years. It's one too many. What can we even do to prevent prison breaks?
Well, we need to, first of all, begin to look at security, like I've always said, beyond arming people and asking them to stand in certain locations and wait for trouble to come. That's not good enough. It has failed us repeatedly. I've always advocated that we need to first of all think ahead of the criminals, and then we need to also focus on intelligence-led policing. There is no way you can allow the criminals and hoodlums to think ahead of you and then you expect to defeat them. We also need to make it impossible for the prison breaks to succeed. Because if you look at the way our prisons are wired, there are two issues. One is that you have to get into the prison compound, that's the correctional center. Then when you get in, the next question becomes, will you have access to the inmates? That's another question. So we need to begin to ask ourselves, what are the buffers that we have? How do we make it impossible? For instance, if you look at the numbers between the first prison break and the second one, I find out that the second is a minimum. Maybe they targeted releasing certain persons, and that inspector that lost his life is not going to wake up. So what I think is that there is need to protect our prisons specially. That is, protect the prison specially doesn't mean post more soldiers. We need to gather intelligence. We need to, for instance, instead of posting 50 men to stand around the prison, don't just post 50 men, deploy people, those people and the electronic surveillance that will keep an eye on movement towards the prison, movement around the prison. That is, you don't just say, oh, we are going to use sheer power and sheer firepower to surprise them when they come, because they have the advantage of surprise. You cannot surprise them with your firepower. Even if they are fewer in number, once they have the element of surprise, they can defeat you. But if we spend more energy tracking the environment, monitoring the environment, having surveillance systems. Now, when you have surveillance systems and you do your analysis of the surveillance, because in Nigeria you can mount surveillance systems, and the person who's supposed to look at the videos will look at the videos for 1 year. You just collect the money and he doesn't look at it. But when you look at it, you notice that there's this guy that comes around the prison and stands around for no reason and moves away. Now that's a red flag that somebody may be planning something. And who is that guy meanwhile? You can run his picture through the police. Have you arrested this guy before? Most policemen know criminals, that's the truth. But we are not thorough, that's the truth. We are not thorough about anything really. We need to become more thorough, knowing fully well that apart from protecting prisoners, what happens to one eventually happens to all. This policeman lost his life today. We don't know who is next in line tomorrow. So I'm even encouraging the security agents to rise above this issue of working like Nigerians, because their own safety is also at stake. This thing is not about muzzle, it's not about firepower. It's more about intelligence, and we need to begin to gravitate towards electronic surveillance systems, analysis of data, and then doing a mapping of criminals and terrorists and hoodlums, keeping an eye on them. So that these things won't keep happening. Unfortunately, we need a whole lot of discipline and mindset change to be able to accomplish some of these things. We are used to might is right. We are used to deploying force for everything, and that's why we are still failing.
Mr. Larry, some people have said there are growing concerns that these inmates who have been released, who escaped prison, the correctional facility, have been responsible for the growing attacks in the region. Just how true do you think this is? Because when you release criminals, of course, especially when they've not been corrected, quote unquote, or rehabilitated, they go back to criminality.
Well, a part of the reason, the challenge we have also is that our correctional centers do not do much correction. Our correctional centers actually, while some people want to be corrected and they submit themselves to the process, the system should also begin to look at those who don't want to be corrected. Because I dare say that if we have an effective correctional facility that will find a way to break down the emotional barrier and get to the minds of these terrorists and begin to reconfigure the way they think. Even if you're applying a jailbreak, they may not be able to cooperate with you from inside because they are now thinking differently, you know. And then let's even expand the scope of this conversation. Even for ordinary criminals who serve their time and are released, most of them go back to crime. The tendency for them to backslide into crime, that's called recidivism. That is, they eventually find themselves in crime again. In fact, if you go and check prison records, a lot of people in prison are people who have been to prison before. Basically because when they come out, apart from the fact that they don't have anything to offer in terms of skills that will put money on their table, they also notice that they are rejected by people like me and you. And when they are rejected because they are ex-convicts, what they do is that they go to the people who receive them. They may have repented and become prayer warriors in the prison, but when you come out and you're hungry, and even the church doesn't accept you as a person, but they tag you an ex-convict, and everybody is keeping an eye on you because you are from prison, you may want to go back to the place where you be comfortable, and that is going back to the people who you do crime with. So for me, it's not even just about those who are brought out by force from prison. Even the people who serve their time, they still have issues that lead them to going back to crime. And we need to begin to ask ourselves, are we going to continue this cycle? Can we do genuine prison reform that will really affect people to the extent that even if they do not want to change, when they come into the prison system, professionals will help them rewire their minds so that they will ultimately understand that the only thing that can work for them is change. I think we need to get to that point where we just have to understand that the prison is not a place of holding people and punishing them, that the prison is a place of helping people to become brand new persons. That's basically what the prison is supposed to be there for. But from way back, in fact, the colonial masters didn't set up our prisons to reform us. And that's part of the problem we have in Nigeria, our colonial heritage. But we should rise above that and go beyond that. We can't be crying about colonial heritage after 60 years. But the truth is that our prisons were set up to hold and punish people who were giving them trouble, in quotes, during the colonial days. And that legacy is still with our prisons. The same thing with our police. A little digression. The police was set up by the colonial masters to punish those who gave them trouble. And today, the policemen are still punishing us. They are still serving their masters. They have never really woken up to the fact that they are supposed to be policing and protecting the people. So we need to attack these problems from all angles, not just the obvious, but we need to ask ourselves, why prisons? What's the mindset of the people who establish the prison? Are we still living in that era? Should we reconfigure the mindset of both the warders, the prison authorities, and the inmates? There's a lot of work to be done. Unfortunately, the people who are in charge of many of these institutions, including our politicians, are not really determined to solve these problems. The first thing is to know that you have a problem. The second is to be determined to solve the problem. Then begin to look for solutions that you will deploy. They don't even know that you have a problem. All they do is to protect themselves. That's the politicians. As soon as they are protected, they leave the rest of us to go.
Okay, let's get to talk about, the ongoing protest. We remember that in February, just a few days ago, or on the 7th of February 2024, we actually saw, the NMCN, that's the Nigerian Midwifery Council of Nigeria, issue revised guidelines on the processes of certificate verification for nurses. And according to the headline right now, we've seen the nurses protesting the certificate verification guideline. They protested in Abuja and also protested in Lagos. According to them, they said the council is trying to stop them from furthering their career abroad. Now, looking at this protest, I don't know if you have access to that particular guideline where it has been said that some of these nurses have to, have at least 3 years, work 3 years before their certificate will be verified. Now, the nurses are protesting that this is totally unacceptable, that this is the NMCN trying to stop them from, growing their career abroad. What do you have to say about that?
I think, we very not think about the collective interest of the people. issue of staying 3 years, there was also this conversation in the National Assembly about doctors not being able to travel until they are put in a certain number of years.
Yes.
But that is not also fair. Now, when I talk about the collective interest, I don't mean just the interest of the patients. I'm also talking about the interest of the professionals. I've always believed that we shouldn't single out certain professions for different kind of treatment. What I think we should do is that if we have a problem, don't make people victims of the problem. If you have professional reasons why they should spend 3 years, that is understandable. But if it is just to keep them here for 3 years before they go elsewhere, that is not fair, because we are not stopping the engineers, we are not stopping the architects, we are not stopping the accountants, the surveyors. I mean, people emigrate on the basis of professional skill, and we're not stopping broadcasters. So if we're not stopping these guys, why should we single out the medical professionals because we think we need them? What I think we should also do is what India did. We should have more medical training institutions. We should encourage our people to actually be the best, and then they shouldn't just travel abroad to collect foreign exchange and stay there forever. We think about brain drain, but we don't ever talk about the gain. If we manage our country well, we will benefit. Actually, one of the things that helped India to leapfrog from being a third world country to challenging the giants in almost all spheres of modern life is that they actually trained a whole lot of professionals. They go to these other advanced countries, especially Europe and America, and then they acquire skills and they go back to India. Now that's where the difference is. Now when you go back to India to practice with that skill you acquired in Europe and America, the environment is conducive for you. Some of the finest hospitals in the world, medical tourism happens in India today. Americans go to India for surgery, and I say that authoritatively because I know that Americans actually bought flights from US and go to India for surgery because it's cheaper, and it's the same doctor that would have put him under the knife in America that is doing it in India. But when the Nigerian case is put on the table, you see that there are major differences. You may be patriotic and you want to come back, but you ask yourself, what's the fate of those who came back before you? You hear news like professor abducted in this place, professor killed in the other place. And so we need to begin to ask ourselves, what are the real problems? Why do they emigrate? Could there be a benefit in this emigration? Can we make it possible for them to come back with sophisticated skills and then provide the same services that people emigrate for, for health tourism and all of that. So these are quick fix solutions. One of the things I've said repeatedly is that our leaders, especially, start knee-jerk response. So people are traveling, stop them, move the emotion on the floor of the house, stop them. They shouldn't go anywhere. That's an impediment, not just on their capacity to apply their trade, but also on their capacity to go to where they want to go when they want to go to improve their careers and professions. We shouldn't think like that. We should think about holistic solutions, including giving them a better space to work. There are so many reasons people emigrate. It's not just the pounds and dollars. There are so many other reasons that we can't go into now. So I don't think it's fair to single out health professionals all the time and say you must do 3 years, you must do 7 years, you must do 5 years. No, sir. I think we need to go beyond that and ask ourselves what are the problems, then we'll solve them.
In fact, the new one with the new guideline by the Midwifery Council has also stipulated that they must even have a minimum of 6 months to expiration dates. And of course, the applicants with provisional license, if not, if you want a license, it will be rejected. So you must have a minimum of 6 months before you even start reapplying for a renewal as well. So looking at all of this, you get to ask yourself, why are those in the medical sector being singled out by their own councils as well as legislators in the country? Let's move away from that. Let's talk about the CBN for a bit. And on Nigerian Tribune, it is reported that our Apex Bank released $6.2 million to pay election observers. CBN director narrates in court. A deputy director with the CBN, Michael Onyeka Ogbo, on Monday narrated before Justice Hamza Mohazu of the High Court of the Federal Capital, sitting at Maitama, Abuja, how the CBN released $6,230,000 for the payment of some international election observers before the 2023 general election. And of course, he testified in the trial of Emefiele, who is the immediate past CBN governor, and he has been prosecuted by the EFCC on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria. Now, looking at this revelation made by one of the deputy directors at the CBN, accusing Emefiele of paying out this amount of money to election observers just before the 2023. What do you have to say about that? $6.2 million paid to election observers.
I think it's actually scandalous because, first of all, a lot of international election observers from institutions that come here to observe elections as their own contribution to the development of democracy.
Very true.
That's they are not workers. They are not looking for money. They are not looking for places to work. They are people who think that we need help, and apart from needing help, some of them are from institutions that document democracy. So they want to know what's happening in Africa, what's happening in Asia, what's happening even in the US. They have international observers also. So the point I'm making is it's scandalous to spend that much money, considering that first of all, we don't have these foreign exchange to throw around, and secondly, how much do we pay our own election observers here? Why can't we find better things to do with our money? Okay, so the election observers that we pay this much money for, can we get to see the list? Because when we see the list, we will not ascertain whether there are people who don't really get paid. And I don't really understand why any election observers should be paid. They are sponsored by CSOs. I've been involved in election observation, in observing security during elections, and I don't understand how government pays election observers. It doesn't happen. The payment usually comes from international donor agencies and global NGOs. So we need to get more information on this particular story. We need to know who was paid, that is, which organization was this money paid to, and how much were they paid, and how much were the individuals paid, so that we even know whether this is a scam altogether. Because as far as I know, people who come for international election observations are not really paid in that sense. They are sponsored by institutions that pick up their bills. That is how it works. So we need to dig deeper and find out who was paid, how much, were they really paid, and all of that is very important, because I'm not aware that we hire election observers from outside to come and observe elections. Even our local election observers are paid largely by donor agencies.
Very true.
So how do you bring in government paying $6 million plus to international observers? We need to know more about this.
Okay, the administration of Godwin Emefiele has been, fingered for a lot of corruption cases right now. And of course, this is one revelation that, we never saw coming until one of the deputy directors of the CBN made that revelation in court. Now, looking at all that is saying, we know the case is in court. There are certain things we cannot say, or certain remarks we cannot even give at this point, particular time, because since the case is in court. But looking at all that transpired during the Emefiele Buhari's administration, would you actually say, this is a case of witch hunting by the EFCC, or they're trying to ensure that the full course of the law take its full course?
My position is very simple. If we want to be serious about fighting corruption and getting to the bottom of the mess, then we shouldn't single out Emefiele at the CBN. There are so many other things that happened under the Buhari administration, and we should actually look at all of them. One of the things I'm very concerned about is this humanitarian lages. That I still wonder, especially with what unfolded recently. I still think we should go back there and take a hard look, because they say that they were feeding students, and I've asked severally. We have thousands of volunteers. We made effort to track this feeding process, and there is little or no evidence that this thing was happening the way they said it was happening. And of course, you are aware that at some point they even claimed to be feeding the students during the holidays. So my position is that they should get to that point where, if they want to find out what happened during the Buhari administration, it shouldn't be restricted to CBN. EFCC and other agencies should reach out and dig deep and find out what happened in other institutions, other agencies beyond and besides CBN. I'm not averse to investigating anybody or any institution, but I'm saying that we should use a level playing ground. It looks as if, underscore looks as if, some people are interested in punishing or nailing Emefiele for maybe not doing certain things they expected him to do at certain points in time. But I said it looks as if. I think we should use the same microscope that we are using to look at Emefiele to also look at other persons who even manifestly and obviously did things that are not acceptable.
Okay, away from that, let's move on. Let's talk about, the federal government quickly before we get to wrap up this morning. And if you're just joining in, this is Voice of the People 96.1 FM here in the capital city of Abuja. And of course, we are your voice, and now you have a voice. You can speak to us. You can also join the conversation live on YouTube. The YouTube page is Voice of the People Abuja. Voice of the People Abuja. So quickly, let me touch this. I would have loved to, but let me just hear your opinion in just 60 seconds on this. This is just me adding this because we're out of time. Let's talk about the federal government. They've resolved the January salary delay, and of course they've actually commended workers for their patience. We saw the drama that happened with federal workers not being paid for the month of January. What do you have to say about that quickly?
My position is very simple. If the federal government is able to pay all the politicians and political appointees